So, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us on this short notice for the reboot of the Accessibility Lunch and Learns with today's session with CNIB on supporting people with vision loss to better access municipal elections, as well as a presentation on Election Nova Scotia's outreach strategy to improve inclusion, diversity, equity, and access to the provincial electoral process. Please note that more Lunch and Learns with CNIB are coming up on the topics of safe and accessible journeys, guide dogs, and clearing our path. Today's session is being recorded as a resource for municipalities and will be uploaded to the Municipal Ideas site and the AMAN's YouTube channel, which we will put in the chat for your reference. I'm Julie Glazer. I'm the manager for the Equity, Anti-Racism, and Accessibility Program for the Association of Municipal Administrators of Nova Scotia. And I'm pleased to also introduce you here to Roxanne Pereira, the Equity of Municipal Administrators of Nova Scotia. The Equity, Anti-Racism, and Accessibility Program Coordinator for AMANS. So we will both be monitoring your chat today for questions for our guests. This program is funded by the Province of Nova Scotia's Accessibility Directorate to help meet the province's accessibility goals by 2030, with support to municipalities through training, education, tools, and resources. So I'm pleased to welcome your presenters today, Shelley Adams, Manager from CNIB Voice Advocacy Atlantic Canada, and as well Colin Cooper, who is the Inclusion Liaison Officer with Elections Nova Scotia. So Shelley Adams, as the manager for advocacy for Atlantic Canada at CNIB, has worked there for about 20 years. Shelley has lived with sight loss since birth and is very passionate about guide dog advocacy, as she has had a guide dog in her life for almost 18 years. Shelley is a registered social worker, has 2 children, a partner, and loves to listen to books and to knit. So welcome, Shelley, to our Lunch and Learn session today. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Am I off mute?
You are off mute.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thanks, Julie, and thanks everyone for attending today. I'm really happy to be here. So as Julie said, my name is Shelley Adams, and I'm the manager of advocacy for Atlantic Canada for CNIB. So very busy right now with election stuff to do with the Nova Scotia municipal elections, as well as the provincial election in New Brunswick. And then, of course, always have on the radar if there's going to be early election calls for federal and Nova Scotia as well. I've heard rumors, but we'll see. So I am here today to just talk about some of the issues that people with sight loss may experience when going through the voting process. Um, and full disclosure, this is in this role, this is my first time sort of dealing with and looking after accessibility when it comes to municipal elections. And it seems to be sort of all over the place, not consistent through the province. So I have reached out to all the returning officers through email. I'm really looking forward to putting together a list of what is offered in which towns, cities, and villages to be able to take that information and share it on a lunch and learn that I'll be doing early October with uh, participants, people with sight loss in Nova Scotia. So thank you to those who have already sent me some information. And I look forward to getting more information from others that I haven't heard from yet. Just a quick note about CNIB. For those that don't know, we are a nonprofit organization. CNIB stands for Canadian National Institute for the Blind, and we have offices throughout Canada. The office for Nova Scotia is in Halifax on Almond Street, and we provide a lot of social and recreational programs for people with sight loss throughout the province, advocacy campaigns and initiatives, one-on-one advocacy workshops to help people become better self-advocates. We have a Smart Life Center, which is basically a store with lots of low tech and high tech products. We also have a technology specialist who can help teach people how to use the technology. And we have a very wonderful volunteer program as well. So we're always looking for volunteers. Um, we have a guide dog program, a puppy raising program in Halifax, so always looking for boarders and puppy raisers, and I just had to plug that. But also a program called Vision Mate, where we match sighted volunteers with our clients, and they sort of get together, once a week, once every 2 weeks, and the sighted volunteer can help people with tasks that they may be having difficulty with because of their sight loss, whether it's organizing things in their home or running errands, or sometimes they're just there to help read through mail or go for a walk, different things like that. So lots of volunteer opportunities. And Roxanne or Julie, they're going to put my email address in the chat so that if you want to reach out to me to ask me about anything that I talk about today, feel free, and I can get you in touch with the right person if I'm not the right person. So, um, since sort of scanning the voting options in Nova Scotia, I have learned that there are a few options depending where you live. So, um, online voting, telephone voting, in-person electronic voting, and in-person paper ballots. Um, and some places it's just e-voting and phone, telephone voting during advanced, and it's in person on elections day. So a mixed bag, which is why I'm trying to create a list so that I'm able to inform our clients the different options. Um, I I want to talk a little bit about some of the scenarios that you may encounter during this election season, um, with with folks who have sight loss. So again, I don't have any sort of anecdotal information from our clients on things like this because this is the first time I've been in this role where it we've been dealing with different types of voting, not just sort of going in and voting on a paper ballot. But these are some things I'm anticipating you could hear from people in your community with sight loss. So not everyone is comfortable using technology. We're working with people on teaching, but there's a lot of people, especially older people, who aren't super interested in learning how to use a smartphone or the internet, or some people are in really rural communities too, and they may not have access to um, voting online or things like that. But what you may encounter is someone, complaining that they're not able to press the button quick enough on the phone to um, choose the option that they need to choose for voting. You may hear someone saying, I can't use the online voting system. Uh, Again, I haven't used it yet, so I can't say if it's accessible with screen readers or not. I assume it is, but I don't want to assume, 100%. That is the way I am going to vote. I think on October 8th, I'm able to vote that way here in Halifax online. So at that point, I will know if it works with screen readers or not. But so people may have issues with that. I've also learned that the electronic voting in person is going to be using a tablet, which is all touchscreen. So someone who has difficulty seeing could have issues with using a touchscreen. I also want to point out that everyone's sight is different. Everyone's level of sight loss. It's a huge spectrum. So it's not just you can see or you can't. Um, there's a lot of different scenarios. And not everyone uses a guide dog or a white cane either. So you may have someone who shows up to vote and I don't like this term, but they don't look blind. So there's nothing identifying that they are not able to see. They might be able to get around okay, but once they get up to that tablet and they have to then, choose the candidate that they want to vote for, um, they may not be able to read the tablet. I was speaking to Julie in returning officer in Bridgewater yesterday, and I think she is on the call today, or supposed to be. And Julie, thank you so much for looking at the tablets that you have for me. Julie was looking and she saw that you can change the color contrast, possibly the size of the font. We're not sure about if there's screen reader capability at this point, but that may be something you want to look into because some people find it a lot easier to read white text on a black background. Some people find the black on white easier. And if you are able to enlarge the font, um, again, there's not one size fits all. So, or if the person has someone with them and they're able to have that person assist, or if you have someone in the office who's able to assist. I know myself, I'm very happy to have someone assist me, read me the ballot, show me where to put the X, and you know, I'm fine if they see who I vote for, but other people it's a very private thing. So we're trying to figure out what are the options that we can provide people who want to have that privacy but aren't able to read the tablet. And the same goes for the paper ballots as well. Um, I when I was talking to Julie in Bridgewater yesterday, I said that we, through Elections Nova Scotia and the Federal Elections Canada, we receive and I think every office receives these tactile templates that you can put over paper ballots. I don't know if those exist for the tablet. Um, and again, there'll be time at the end of my presentation. So if people have any information on this, it would be great because I'd love to be able to share it with all of you as well as uh, at the information session that I do for our clients. But I'm going to try to show you right now this. I don't even know where I got this, and it's huge. I think it's a large print ballad. And I'll try, Julie, Roxanne, let me know if you're able to see this.
Yeah, so just hold it up towards your forehead more.
Like
Yep.
that.
Yeah,
So
so we can see the
basically,
numbers. Yep.
yeah, so basically, this is huge. I can't even remember if this was federal or provincial. I just found it this morning because I was looking for some tools that I could show you. But basically, this is a huge one. Like I said, it has the tactile hole. So it has the number in Braille and a raised number. So I can feel, okay, backwards, but that's number 2 in Braille. There's a raised number 2, and there's the hole right next to it. So I still would need someone to read me, you know, so and so's number 1, so and so's number 2, so and so's number 3, and then remember which candidate is with what number. But at least I'm able to then say, okay, great, I'm good. You can kind of leave the area so that I can mark off the ballot where I want to mark it. So it's a nice tactile way to do that. Now, I don't think that I'm assuming that municipalities do not have these. I was saying to Julie that you could probably easily create one using like Bristol board or something like that. And even if you had one available, because you're not going to get a lot of people coming in who have sight loss or who need the template. So even if you had one available, and you might have to, like I said, create something yourself. And there may even be a way to create a template like this for the tablet. I'm not sure, but those would be some suggestions that I would make because for those people who want to be able to vote on their own, this is one of the best options for being able to do that.
Shelley, sorry,
Um,
where would somebody get that as opposed to make one of their own?
well, I know that's a good question because like CNIB doesn't supply them. For provincial elections, they're always available like through Elections Nova Scotia, and they're available through
Okay.
the Elections Canada. So like that's what I'm saying. Municipal elections, I'm learning is very like there's just doesn't seem to be a standard for it.
Hmm.
So that might be something we want to look into is for future elections is how do we procure something that's going to work, whether
Yeah.
it's on the tablet or on or for paper ballots. Um,
Can I can I
but
also
there
just
could
mention
be,
like,
yeah.
oh, sorry, like because you said that somebody would still have to read the names to you. And in some
Mhm.
cases, there could be a lot of names to remember. Like that
Yes,
to me would be really problematic. If there were seven different names and then you have to remember each name and each number, um, that could be
well,
really
exactly.
challenging.
Yeah, exactly. So there are a lot of challenges around it, when you're not able to see, these are things that we deal with all the time, trying to memorize things, trying to keep track of things. And um, again, like I said, if I go vote and I have somebody standing with me helping me, I'm very happy to just say, oh, mark that one for me, or let me know which you know, where's so and so, or they'll just say like it's easy with provincial because you're just voting for like one person or federal, right? But
Hmm.
for municipal, it's a little bit different. So, and there's a lot of names. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 16 people running
Yeah.
for mayor in Halifax, so it's going to be like,
Right. Right.
you know,
I
yeah.
think that's more than the
So,
numbers that were on the template that you just showed us.
well, this template, again, I don't know what election this is from, but it has, you guys wouldn't be able to see it, but it has like, let me just see, 32 spaces
Oh,
or something. No, no, 40 spaces.
wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's huge.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen smaller ones like the federal elections, they have it's a bit of a smaller ballot, but yeah.
Mhm.
Um and then there's also a lot of technology now that people can use to read things. And I was going to show you but technology, like you're not really supposed to take your phone in and use it while you're voting. So that's another thing I think we really need to start talking about is, you know, because I have my phone here, I can take a photo of this ballot or a piece of paper, like if there's something you need to sign or something you need to read, like I can take a picture and it'll read it all to me. So it in voice, like using voice. So if people were allowed to do that, and again, a lot of our clients don't have this technology, but some do, and some use it a lot. So even the Meta glasses, I don't know if anyone's heard of those, but I just got a pair of those and I'm just starting to figure out what those can do for me. And I can have it read. I did earlier. I held up this big ballot in front of me and had it read it, and it read all the names. Now, I don't know if they were in order, so that's also an issue. Technology is not perfect, but even if there's a form someone needed to sign or anything like that, um, being able to use our technology to read for us is really important. So, um, those are some of the things that I can see people, some issues that you could face or hear from people about. Is just, I can't do this. We get calls all the time because we have a 1-800 number people can call and they're just like, oh, I get so confused with what numbers to press, and I don't press it fast enough and then I have to call back. And you may get that from other people too, but just from our experience, that kind of thing could happen. Um, the not being able to vote online. I know that, you do have the phone option. It's not solely online, I think, in most cases, but that could be an issue. And then also being able to read the ballot and mark off the ballot independently is definitely going to be something that um, is an issue. Again, a lot of people will bring a family member with them who can assist them, or I'm sure you'll hopefully have people um, at the location that can also assist. But those are some of the barriers or the challenges that I think you would hear most about when dealing with voting in a few weeks. Um, just looking to see what else. I think those are the main things I really wanted to talk about. Like I said, I did email all the returning officers yesterday, hoping to get feedback on what is being offered. Some people I've noticed advanced, well, in Halifax too, advanced polls are different than day of. So just having all that information is really going to be helpful if I have people contacting me or when I do this information session or send out an email to clients to say, this is what I found out throughout Nova Scotia. This is available, and this is available. This is how voting is working this year. You know, some places it's fully online and on the phone, some places it's paper ballots. So it's all over the place, but just trying to cover all the bases and make sure that you guys are informed, and then I can, and also our clients, Nova Scotians with sight loss, are informed of the different um, types of voting that are available. Um, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have before we move to the next part of the presentation.
Hmm. Does anybody have any specific questions or examples that they'd like to share with Shelley for some insight or feedback? Did we get that list of the 5 municipalities who are paper only?
Remember if we received that? I know we got the list of returning officers. I can't remember if that was also in that email. I feel like it might not have been.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, we know there's 5 that are paper only, and all the villages are paper only.
Hmm.
My hope is that because when I heard there was e-voting, I was so excited because I'm on, online all the time. And for someone with sight loss, it's a lot easier to to vote in the comfort of your own home rather than trying to find your way to a place that you may never have been before just to vote, stand in a confusing lineup and
Mm,
have issues with accessibility to vote. So I again don't know the stats on this, but I'm thinking that having all of these different options, not just for people with sight loss, but the whole Nova Scotians in general, I'm hoping that the phone and electronic voting and also being able to go in person, because there's definitely going to be people who like to do it the old-fashioned way and
yeah.
go in person.
Yeah.
Um, Hopefully it will up the voting numbers. We'll see, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah. We also talked a little bit in the conversation that you and I had just about the notices that go out to people on the, who are on the voter list and telling them, where, when, and how to vote. And again, we don't know what that looks like unless the municipalities are doing e-vote, and then we understand that the the notice goes out through the supplier of the system, but do we know how municipalities who are paper only, how they are notifying their residents? Um, did you get any information back on that from the returning officers?
Haven't. I actually forgot to ask that question, so I will. I'll do a follow-up email soon anyway, just, in a week or so, just to get more information, and I'll ask about that. But it's really important when you're sending out um, letters like that to make sure that you're using a very clear font. CNIB has clear print guidelines, which you can
Hmm.
um, look up. Roxanne, I don't know if you want to, I don't know the link, but if you have a chance to put the link in the chat, I think you can just Google it. CNIB clear print guidelines.
Hmm.
And we usually recommend like Arial or Verdana and size, 14, 16, something like that, so that it can be read by those who still have some usable vision to be able to read, um, or they have a magnifier or something they can use.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and then we're actually going to get in touch with the company who does the e-voting, has the e-voting platform, and from a national CNIB perspective, because there could be other provinces that also use this platform. And so we want to say to them, again, here's our clear print guidelines. When you are sending those letters out, please make sure that you're sending it out in a format that is clear and easy for people to read. I did go online yesterday when I was kind of looking at my voting options for HRM, and with a screen reader, it was very easy to navigate the site where I could make sure that I was registered. So I just
Hmm.
had to put my name and my address, and then it just came up and said, "Yep, you're registered to vote." So that was quite easy. So I will share that with I don't know what that's like in other municipalities. Didn't really look at any other sites yet, but that's part of my plan for the next few weeks before I meet with um, clients across Nova Scotia to explain all this to them. Um, but it was quite an easy process and accessible, at least for the Halifax site. So
That's a great test, right? Just to go
yeah,
to, yeah, go to each municipal site right away to check on their voter registration, um,
yes, exactly.
and how accessible that is. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's a really handy tip to have.
Yeah, so
Uh, each,
I will check out some other municipalities when I get
mhm,
a chance and make sure that they seem accessible. I just want to be able to share with our clients, here's all the information I can give you so that they are ready to go and vote and know what to expect.
mhm.
Honestly, I don't remember 4 years ago if there was any of the online or phone voting. I'm not sure. I went in person, so and I wasn't really paying it. Like I said, with my position back then, I wasn't really paying attention to this as much as I am and have to now. So uh, I just went and voted. But yeah, it's a lot of information to gather, but really important
Mhm.
because we want to keep people as informed as possible.
Absolutely. And so will you survey your members afterwards about their municipal voting experience in Nova Scotia?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, and I can share that. Yeah. Knowing, I mean, we don't have the resources to phone every client. Like it'll just whoever has email and responds. So we may
Mhm.
not get a ton of responses, but I can share what I hear so that people kind of know how that went for our
Yeah,
community.
that would be really helpful. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we look forward to receiving that survey feedback that you get afterwards. I think that'll really help to inform, yeah, going forward in a lot of our processes as well. Thank you, Shelley.
Yeah, no problem.
Uh,
But yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything they want to talk to me about, you can just send me an email and we can chat.
Fantastic. Thank you. Always a pleasure to learn from you and engage with you on these conversations. And again, Shelley will be returning on behalf of CNIB on some future subjects. Again, we're talking about safe and accessible journeys for people with vision loss, guide dogs, and also clearing our path, which is about navigating the built environment and making the built environment a safer and more manageable place for people with vision loss to navigate. So thank you very much, Shelley. Our next presenter is Colin Cooper, who is the Inclusion Liaison Officer with Elections Nova Scotia. And although we are talking about municipal elections, in conversation with Colin, we learned about a committee that is within Elections Nova Scotia now on their outreach strategy to improve inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility and access to the provincial electoral process. So welcome, Colin. Thanks for sharing today.
Thank you, and my apologies for showing up a little late to this. Um, Before I get started in what I would like to say, I would like to explain my position and my role within Elections Nova Scotia. So I am an inclusion liaison officer. I work on behalf of our ideas committee in implementing our outreach and voter participation strategy for the upcoming provincial general election, and hopefully learning from this first time experience and implementing some long-term policy changes for the next general election. Now, what that means in practice is I work with a number of our partner organizations in figuring out how to tangibly enact our goals and work with them on that and enacting our goals in a way that is meaningful and impactful to their memberships. So how I would like to approach this talk is I will go over what our goals are, how the committee works, and how this could be applied on a municipal level. So the Ideas Committee, as was previously said, stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access or Accessibility, depending on how you want to approach it. And we're governed by four key objectives and what we're trying to do in the run up to this provincial election. So, in addition to the first one being project management, which is basically a fancy way of saying that we're going to keep everyone appraised and informed as to what's going on and working together. We're focusing on improving employment diversity of election workers, expanding voter awareness and accessibility, and improving voter experience. And all of these are equally important to providing marginalized Nova Scotians with a worthwhile experience at the polls. People might overlook something like employment diversity and just think that if they have the proper tools in place to accommodate marginalized people, they're doing enough. But having staff that represents the entire community and represents members of these underserved communities goes a long way towards making them feel comfortable and welcome in a voting environment. When it comes to the other two objectives, expanding voter awareness and accessibility and improving voter experience, that is the majority of what I do on a day-to-day basis. We have a lot of programs in place already on the provincial level with Elections Nova Scotia to increase equity and accessibility of the voting experience. However, the big problem we have is not a lot of people are informed of it. I remember when I was speaking with Shelley about what we can do for the visually impaired, Shelley asked me if online voting would be a possibility. I had to inform her that due to security reasons, it cannot be, but we have a very robust write-in ballot system where you can request a write-in ballot to come to you and mail it back to us. Or if you need assistance, you can actually request the ballot come to your home with a home voting team, a group of election staff that will come to your residence with you, guide you through the voting process, help you with anything voting wise you need, and then take the completed ballot with them back to the polls. It's a complete one-stop shop experience. You just call us or email us or send someone in and request a service, and we handle the rest. And I just use that as an example of we have these systems already in place, in some cases for years, but still a lot of people are not informed about it. And on the municipal level, I anticipate that's going to be your biggest challenge with whatever system you have set up, making sure your citizens are properly informed about the options that are available to them, and the fact that we're trying to give enough people enough options to do the best thing that works for them. Because me, like, I got into this job because I'm physically disabled. I walk with a cane. For me, physical accessibility is the big deal. And luckily, at the provincial level, we're doing great on that. All of our official voting locations are completely wheelchair accessible, and therefore good enough for me. However, where I find we still have to do a lot of work is things like assistance for the visually impaired, even though we do have some materials, and also something that I'm currently working on for the next election and hopefully the elections after that, more thought into creating a sensory friendly voting experience for those with sensitivity to light or sound, and usually those that are on the autism spectrum. So we have to think about how we can accommodate not only like what people would assume are the people that need help, those in wheelchairs or those with walkers to help out. We have to ask ourselves, how can we make the best voting experience available to all of our citizens? And in many cases, that's by having different voting experiences that are tailored to the needs of the citizens. Excuse me. So one thing I can one thing I can say about that is it's not going to be an easy job. It's in a lot of cases, with the election happening so fast on the municipal level, it might not even be something that you can do a lot to change for this upcoming election. But we have to do what we can now and make a plan for the future so we approach elections in a different way. Some people are going to prefer the election day poll experience, and it'll be most important to just have a physically accessible poll. Other people need alternatives to go to the poll. And it's all about thinking outside of your own experiences and outside of what you need and considering what others may need. And that is really the largest challenge, which is why I think in elections of Nova Scotia, we've gone the right way about it by establishing our ideas committee. Because every member of the ideas committee is a non-governmental organization that represents a group of marginalized residents within Nova Scotia. We're using the term underserved communities. For the physically disabled, there's Easter Seals Nova Scotia and Independent Living Nova Scotia. For the neurodivergent, there is Autism Nova Scotia. For the students, there's Students Nova Scotia. For the Acadians, there's a Fédération Acadie de Nouvelle-Écosse. The idea is we have representatives for all of these groups of people, providing us a perspective that we might not get internally in the office. And this is very useful for us because these perspectives really tell us how we need, like, where we need to improve, what we're doing right and where we're doing what we're doing right and where we're doing wrong. And if we're looking at this just ourselves, we're going to have a lot of blind spots based on this lack of lived experience in certain areas. So I would encourage you on your level to figure out what the equivalent would be. Or maybe we could have, this would not be my call to make, but I envision in the future, maybe we have this ideas committee be something that can apply on both the provincial and municipal level. Something to consider, something that the higher ups would have to talk about, would not be my decision. But in the meantime, I can provide some insights into what we're doing to tackle these problems now. And then after I'm done that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. So I'm going to refer to my work plan here. And I'll just run through some of the things we're doing on the various large objectives we have. So employment diversity. This is a big one for us. We want to really challenge the preconceived notion of who an election worker is and who they can be, and the type of people that feel welcome in a poll. And by doing that, we're specifically looking for potential employees from underserved communities that have historically been sort of outside of the election process. We're doing this through many ways. We are partnering with our partner organizations to find people affiliated with them that would be interested in working with Elections Nova Scotia. And we are encouraging them to reach out to us. And we're assembling a inventory of people that are interested in being employed for the election. And when it comes closer to the time where we have to make these hiring decisions, we'll be able to connect them directly with their local returning officer to make these connections and figure out what role works best for them. And on that topic, we're trying to be more flexible with our roles, considering things of how we can modify a position to make it easier. Perhaps instead of one like 12-hour shift from 8 to 8 on election day, there might be 2 or 3 people doing that job in 2 or 3 different shifts, for example, to make it easier on them. We are open to the idea of having support workers there with the employee, helping them through the job if necessary. And we're fairly new to this endeavor. So we're going to be listening to the needs of potential employees and doing our best to try to accommodate them in the working environment. We also have we've also developed a list of employment support agencies that we're going to provide to our ROs to further assist them with any staffing shortages they may encounter. Now, so that's a short summary of employment diversity. Moving on to voter awareness and access, this is where we're doing a lot of our outreach work. We're trying to figure out what people do and don't know about the provincial election system, and we're trying to find ways to reach people and inform people and excite people about the election that previously would have been ignored by the system or choose to ignore the election ongoings because they are simply not interested or they believe it doesn't really matter. So to provide some examples of this, my coworker Marley and I, we're currently trying to tackle the issue of young eligible voters not having interest in the election, in many cases not being registered to vote. We're developing a social media campaign to spread on platforms that young people already are, such as Instagram, to convey the importance of participating in democracy and guiding young people through the process of registering to vote on a provincial and federal level. Municipalities can think of their own social media campaigns to provide this information to the younger demographic, because historically we've seen that the older demographic are typically pretty informed on the processes and engaged in the election, while the younger demographic is not. And we're going to be using this social media campaign as a template for a lot of our more direct communications with the public moving forward, and trying to find other underrepresented groups that might suffer from a lack of knowledge to target and inform. We are also, well, this ties in with improving the voter experience as well, but we have developed voter information presentations that I have gone around to certain partner organizations to present to them and inform their memberships of the things they need to know to vote effectively. And we're currently building upon that to make it more inclusive. We're making another presentation that's similar for employment, and we're making another presentation. My apologies. We're making another presentation that would focus more specifically on accommodations. So in general, we have to figure out who is currently not aware of what's going on and find, say, natural ways of ensuring that they are aware. And I'll be happy to answer any questions on this topic after my little spiel. So lastly, we have the improved voter experience, where a lot of our meat and potatoes work is. We're trying to find the things we've missed in our accessibility system from previous generations and really bring it up to speed. So I mentioned a sensory-friendly voting experience before. That's a big push for this year. We have physical accessibility pretty much down pat. We have some things for the visually impaired. However, when it comes to neurodivergence, autism, things like that, those issues have been ignored on the provincial level. So that's our focus for this year. We're trying to come up with a way to make the polls more inviting for people that face these challenges and hopefully increase their participation. The goal of everything we do is to increase voter participation across the board. And these underserved communities are like the easiest way to do so because they are the ones that have been ignored and pushed to the sidelines in the past. We've been looking at trying to raise mainstream voter participation, thinking that would be the easiest thing to do. That's at a pretty good level for those of us that aren't young or uniquely challenged in this life. Now it's the time to really get the rest of us on board. And yeah, so aside from developing the sensory friendly voting experience, it really goes down to targeting these neglected people and making sure they're informed and feel supported in their voting journey. You're going to want to build connections with powerful people in in these communities, get them on board with your mission and willing to spread the gospel within their own communities. That's what we're working on now. We're hoping to build stronger relationships with our partner organizations representing specific communities and really develop very strong means of communication and spread of information to these groups. And at the same time, we're looking at how we tell our staff to behave, how we train our staff, and we're trying to figure out ways to incorporate these ideas, values into our training so that ROs are already thinking about these. Returning officers, I shouldn't abbreviate. Returning officers are always thinking of these in everything they do in their jobs, and it really gives us a lens through which we interpret all of the work we're going to be doing for this election. And I believe in terms of the summary of what we're doing, that about covers everything. And I would love to answer any questions you may have. And I'm also going to put my email address in the chat. So if any of you have specific questions about what we're doing here at Elections Nova Scotia, you can just write to me directly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Colin. That was super informative, really helpful to me thinking about the work that municipalities are doing with their accessibility plan updates and also their dismantling racism and hate plans. All of this work pulls back into those plans some really actionable examples that you've shared here. I loved this, so I'm so thankful that you were able to come in and share the work that Elections Nova Scotia and this committee is doing. I will open it up. If anybody in the room, feel free to unmute yourself or pop a question in the chat, and Roxanne and I will read it out for you. Any questions you have for Colin? Quiet group. You covered everything. That was really thorough. Roxanne, can you think of any questions that you might have?
Let me think about it for a couple more minutes.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, again, I would just really like to thank both of our guests, Shelley and Colin, today for sharing how to support people with disabilities in their communities with vision loss, thinking forward into the future about municipal elections and how we can engage the full extent of our voter possibilities and engaging all communities in the process of democracy as staff, voters, folks who are going to run in elections and represent our governments. Yeah, this is really, I love the strategy. Like it was laid out very clearly, Colin, and I think that it's really helpful to hear that that's happening, because I do think that there are some good pieces in there that can be modeled and worked into these municipal plans to help develop communities and relationships and capacity. So thank you so much. I actually can't wait to connect with you again on this, because I think this is really exciting work.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to advise in whatever way I can. I am uninformed about what things are like on the ground level for the municipalities in this upcoming election, but if there's any a piece of advice you need, if you want to copy our homework here at Elections Nova Scotia for something, I'm more than happy to facilitate to the best that I can.
Wonderful, thank you. We will be in touch again, and this session will be recorded and uploaded for the municipal leads to access to learn from both your presentations today. And I really appreciate your time, and to everybody who was able to join us today. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
thank you,
Thank
Shelley, and thank
you.
you, Colin. All right, take
Enjoy
care.
the rest of your
Thanks,
day.
everyone.
Thanks, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.